Excellent. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone, no matter wherever you are located in this wonderful world of ours. We know that cybersecurity is key and ransomware resiliency is top of everyone's mind, and we're really thrilled that you join us today. So what I'd like to do is, first off, I'm Bill Frowick with Renodis, and I will hand this off to John Temis with Intelisys and Matt over at Xcitium.
Hey everybody, this is John Themis with Intelisys. I'm a solutions engineer here and a generalist across the platform of technologies that Renodis sells. And as Bill mentioned, we're going to talk to you today about ransomware resiliency. So I'm going to start this with an interesting quote. So ransomware is just a big hype, right? It's really not happening to anybody. That's what a lot of people think. You know, this quote kind of it really comes to fruition as to how a lot of people think. So if you're not a huge company, a huge, enterprise, or you have multi-million dollar assets or anything like that, you don't have to worry about it. The unfortunate thing about today's ransomware is that you really do. It is truly a huge business, and it's funny to say it, but it is a huge business that is really making millions and millions of dollars every year. There's some scary statistics that we're going to talk about a little bit, and then we're going to actually roll into a demo where Xcitium is going to show you some of the features that they have and some of the solutions that they have in place to help to combat ransomware and other cyber attacks. But you can see in this slide, $10 trillion of projected cost of cybercrime in 2025. 10 trillion, 10.5 trillion actually. That's a huge number when you're talking about the possibility of attacks in your business, of money that's being basically held ransom for you and your data within your company. You can see there that 80% of all cyber crimes are from phishing attacks. And the next slide that I'm going to show actually goes into the human error side of cyber attacks these days, where essentially we're showing that 95% of the cyber attacks that are happening in today's day and age are because of human error, whether that's clicking on a link, whether that's responding to an email with a request, whether that's answering a phone call from a support person with that person on the other end asking to give them access to the network. These are all areas that are being exploited today in the cyber crimes arena. For those of you, I love this movie. It's a little bit of a kitschy movie, if you will, but the movie Beekeeper that just came out a few years ago, actually, I think a year ago, actually shows that cybercrime is a big business. Like these cybercrime organizations have full contact centers that are across the globe. They have hundreds and hundreds of people that are actually working in the background to go after people's data to get the money that they know they'll give up to get that data back. As I said here, 95% of all cyber crimes are related to human error. So this is where, and we talk about this a little bit further in the presentation, this is where you really need to educate your users, educate your end users, educate your support people, educate anybody that has access to really any data or any resources within your network to be aware of what these attacks look like. They can come as a text message. They can come as an email. They can come as a link that looks not suspicious. And unfortunately, if you click on those links, or you give somebody access to your network, you provide them essentially with the keys to the castle. They can lock up all your data. They can get access to your resources. They can take over your network. This is a little bit of an eyesore or an eye chart, if you will, but it shows some of the trends within ransomware. And the big thing that I want to point out here is that this has gone back to the days of the floppy disk. So ransomware is not something new. Ransomware has been around for a very long time, specifically more around the cyber attacks, but ransomware is definitely up and coming, and it is a major concern in today's day and age. So some of the stats I'll go through here. In 2022, for example, the volume of ransomware attacks dropped 23%. However, in the first quarter of 23, they then tripled. So, essentially it's probably a situation where we were coming off COVID, things were kind of settling down a little bit, but once everybody started going back to working in the office or potentially even expanding into working from home, those attacks went up by 3 times in the first quarter of 23. So you see some of the other stats here. In 21, the average ransomware payment went up 82% from the 2020 record, which was $570,000. That's an average ransomware attack. So when you're looking at, again, this can put a company out of business, especially a small to mid-sized company that doesn't have $570,000 laying around to pay these bad actors to give them their data back. I'm not going to go through a lot of detail in these next slides, but you get a sense of, for example, the average cost of a ransomware attack in 24 reached $2.73 million. Now that's the average attack, that's the average cost to essentially get data back, to eliminate the ransomware from, or the malware from the network, be able to recover, whether that's data or hardware, or be able to get back to the point where that company was able to do work. You're looking at an average of $2.75 million per incident in 2024. Just let that sink in for a minute. How many companies do you know of that can afford a $2.75 million hit? 62% of the ransomware attacks in 24 were originated from a software supply chain partner. So what does this mean? So that means that a piece of software that you purchased from another company and you put into your business to run your business was the target of a ransomware attack. For those of you that heard anything about the car dealers across the nation last year that were basically put in a position where they couldn't sell cars for, in some cases, 6, 8, 12 weeks. They couldn't sell a car. They couldn't put in a service request. They had to do everything manually back to, 1980s technology to do any business. That came from a third-party software that they were all using for dealer management that helped them track service records, help them track inventory, help them track the businesses or the business transactions that they were doing within their businesses. And that was spread across probably 85% of the dealers across the nation, and basically almost put them all out of business all at the same time. You can see here that we're looking at a CAGR of 7.6% of increase, year over year increase in ransomware projection from now until 2029. Normally, when we're looking at CAGRs, we're looking at sales figures. In this particular case, we're looking at attack figures of almost 20% increase year over year in the upcoming years. One of the things that I see on a regular basis is small to medium-sized companies still using Microsoft's remote desktop protocol. This is one of the biggest and most costly vulnerabilities out there that is still being used on a regular basis and is still being attacked on a regular basis. So if you have any customers that you know of, or I should say if you as a customer are aware of this RDP being used in your platform, make sure you look for alternatives. There's definitely more secure alternatives out there. There are, more secure ways of doing business other than that simple RDP. Make sure everything's patched. We're actually going to talk about this in the next step here. So, for those older pieces of software, those older pieces of platform that are out there that are known security risk, you want to make sure that you look at more secure ways of doing business, but four very easy ways to keep yourself protected from ransomware attacks are back up your files. And it's best to try to look at something called immutable backup. So essentially what that means is it is a backup that's being pushed off your network and it's not accessible from your direct LAN. Meaning that if anybody does gain access to your network, they can't manipulate that backup data. They can't get access to it. Another thing, as we said before, say no to suspicious links. There's lots of them out there. There's lots of different angles that people are trying to attack at this point. Make sure your users are well educated. Make sure they're not clicking on links. Make sure they're being maybe tested on a regular basis. Do test emails, do test links, and go after those users that are more prone to clicking on links, and make sure that they're educated that unless you know where that link is coming from and where it's going, do not click on it. Patch, patch, patch. From a patch management perspective, make sure not only your operating system is patched, but also your software platforms. So there's lots of third-party software platforms that are out there that do get and should be patched on a regular basis. A lot of people focus on Microsoft because that's the big one, but make sure that all of the other software components, all of the other platforms within your infrastructure that can be patched are patched. And use firewalls. Block incoming traffic. You don't need to let everything in from the outside. I don't remember the exact stat, but I remember hearing back in the day that if you put a brand new PC on an open network port or an open internet port, that PC is being attacked within seconds of it going into or connecting to the internet. So if there's network ports that you don't need to use, block those ports. We can certainly help you. Xcitium can help you to identify what traffic should and shouldn't be going through into your internal network. And if something does happen, disconnect from the internet. Make sure that if you do get ransomware, you do get some sort of a malware attack, you do have some sort of breach of some sort, disconnect from the internet. That at least gives it gives you a fighting chance to get your data secure, to eliminate that external bad actor from doing more damage inside your network. So where do we go from here? How do we help? What do we do? So what we want to do here is we want to focus on resiliency. We don't want to avoid it. We don't want to pretend it isn't there. And really, again, this is another eye chart slide, but this is something that's very important. It's really the 5 levels of security maturity. Starting on the very left side with level 1, which is really a vulnerable component. That's where, you don't have a lot of set policies. You don't have a lot of components from a protection standpoint in place. You're not documenting procedures. You're not following best practices from a security standpoint. And you're just hoping that something doesn't happen to you. You certainly don't want to be in this position. Level 2 gets you to the next. It's being more aware and more reactive, putting basic controls in, having better processes defined, doing more documentation of your security practices and software, but also understanding that there are still better ways to go, which leads us to the middle level, where you're kind of looking at an effective security policy. You're looking at best practices, you've got documented security policies, you've got good software in place that's protecting you, but obviously there's still 2 more levels to go before you can actually be in a situation where you're truly proactive. Those 2 levels, compliance and optimization, are really what Xcitium is here to talk about and help us to get to. So some other things here that we'll talk about before we get into the demo, and I'm just going to touch very, very high level on this, but preventative ransomware prevention. You want to have an antivirus solution in place. You want to have that firewall, next generation firewall in best case scenario. You want that firewall in place, and you want to make sure that it's got the correct policies in place. Multi-factor authentication is huge. That helps you to eliminate, the single point of failure of somebody gaining access to your network. Application OS and other third-party patches that are applied on a regular basis. I can't say it more. I can't say it too much. Make sure things are patched. And then make sure that your users and your IT staff, both your end users and your IT staff, are sufficiently trained in IT security. From a recovery standpoint, disaster recovery is a conversation that you should have. If you don't have a disaster recovery policy in place, you need to start talking about one. It needs to be documented. It needs to have RPO and RTO, which we can talk about at another time and go deeper in place. But essentially, RPO gives you the ability to recover data from that certain point of whatever the breach is, whatever the problem is. And RTO is the time that it takes you to get your business processes back up, whether that's servers, whether that's applications, whether that's entire locations. That recovery time objective is something that you want to make sure that you have solutions in place to help you get back in time very quickly. Lots of other things to talk about here, but obviously, we can go into the discovery or the demo here and talk more about it. And have a plan. Make sure that you have, whether it's IT staff or you've got a third-party supplier that's helping you, like Xcitium, that can help you with a recovery plan. Make sure it's documented. Make sure you understand who's going to do it. Make sure that you have everything documented from start to finish as to what happens in the event of a ransomware. This last slide that I'm going to leave you with is kind of scary. It shows you the platforms that are out there in cybersecurity. And that's what we're here to help you with. If you look at this slide, and it's intentionally difficult to see, but these are all the different players in the cybersecurity space. And there's a lot out there, and there's a lot to choose from, but that's what we're all here to help you to choose who's the best fit for your particular business and the business requirements that you're trying to solve for. With that said, cybersecurity can be scary. We don't want to fail. We don't want companies to fail, and we don't want people losing their jobs. So we're going to hold off on questions for now, but I would like to basically get into the demo component of our presentation here. So I'm going to switch it over to Matt from Xcitium. Matt's actually going to go through some of the solutions that Xcitium has in place today to help combat this cyber problem that we have out there. Matt?
Thank you, John. Great intro. Let me just go ahead and share out my screen so we can see what that looks like. So actually, I'm going to start on the endpoint because Xcitium has an endpoint protection platform that deals directly and addresses this problem head on. So you're looking at my desktop here that I've shared out to you, and staring at us here is my mailbox, and you can clearly see that I have received this email that came in this morning. I'm just going to tell you right up front that this is a phishing email. But what I don't know here is that this attachment that I'm about to read, since I am expecting this package, actually contains an unknown that's laced with ransomware. So naturally, I'm going to read it because I want my package. But as you can also see, this endpoint is already protected by our endpoint protection platform here at Xcitium. And you can see that I turned on my widget over here in the corner. Now, like many other endpoint protection platforms, we have multiple technologies that are running that are designed to protect the endpoint, but we do much more. And let me elaborate on that. So I'm pulling up my widget here, and you can actually see the technologies that we have running in parallel. And these are all important for different reasons. And these are all ours. So you can see that we have our own next-gen antivirus and our host-based firewall and our host-based intrusion prevention. Now, these layers that I've just described to you are fairly standard and common across the landscape for endpoint protection, and they will stop those things that each of these different types of technologies are able to identify. Perfect. You expect that. What's missing out in the industry today is the ability to stop things that aren't detectable. So for example, you've heard of ransomware. You may have heard of also of these things called 0 days. And these are those newest threats that have rolled out. And in fact, a few have already rolled out on the internet since this call began here. So they're so new that no one knows what they do or how they do it. So they simply just sail right through all the layered defenses that people have put in place, whether at the network level or at the endpoint level. If there's no way to detect it, today's technologies cannot stop it. But Xcitium actually fills that hole. We have this patented component that we've brought to the market, and it's buried into this feature here called auto containment. Now, what's special about auto containment? Well, actually, auto containment literally prevents damage from occurring from these unknowns. Now, I mentioned 0 days a moment ago, and in our world here at Xcitium, all unknowns in 0 days, right? They all just fall right into auto containment. And auto containment is a little bit different as well because it literally prevents damage from occurring, which means there's no cleanup, there's no reset or re-imaging, there's no downtime, productivity is not lost. These are important factors when you're running a business. Okay, so I'm just going to close this out right now. And I want to go into user mode here and read my instructions that have arrived. But before I do that, it's important to know that Xcitium really doesn't care how a file gets to the endpoint. As we all know, there's a million ways to get to the endpoint. In this case that you're looking at, it's coming via email. But a file could have arrived directly from a web page, maybe from OneDrive, Dropbox, SharePoint, USB stick, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, doesn't matter. Where it does matter in our world here at Xcitium is actually when it executes, either by you or maybe a background process, whether it's today or even 6 months from now, doesn't matter. But at execution time is when it matters. And at execution time, only one of 3 things will ever occur on an endpoint. And they are as follows. Known good will run. That's pretty straightforward. We all expect that. Known bad will actually be killed before it's able to execute. So you'll never even see it. That's great. But that leaves now one remaining option. And that is, we have no idea if it's good or bad. So by default, it is auto-contained prior to execution. Now, what does that mean to a user? Well, when something is auto-contained, it means that which is contained cannot harm your files, cannot spread to other computers and create chaos over there, can't call home and say, I have a new victim, can't steal your data either. It literally cannot do anything. Yet it runs right here on the endpoint. Now, all of this works whether you're online or offline, so you are protected regardless. Okay, I'm going into user mode, and I'm going to do what every other user does. They just go ahead and click on things because who doesn't want their package to arrive when it's been ordered? So let's go ahead and open this up here. All right, I've gone ahead and opened it, and I can see in the widget that I purposely turned on over here in the corner that it tells me that I have something running in containment. Am I concerned? Not in the slightest. Containment is a good thing. It's protecting me. I see a window showing up and disappearing really quickly. I see another one over here. Actually, here comes another one. So now I've got, my machine has a life of its own, apparently, and I can't undo that click. But if you look carefully at these windows that popped up, each one of these windows is wrapped in this thin green wrapper. See that? That is the indication to you that this has been auto-contained. Now, if you can see the small print here in the title bar, that says Notepad. We all know that there's nothing wrong with Notepad. It's safe. It ships with the operating system. So why is this instance of Notepad auto-contained? And the answer here is really simple. It's because this instance of Notepad is actually doing something more than simply displaying the contents of a text file. That's why it's auto-contained. In fact, if I needed to use Notepad, I did say it was normal and safe. Go ahead and open it here. You can see that the Notepad I just opened up is not auto-contained. It actually has full access to my system, as you would expect. And then this big pop-up over here in the corner, the Blue Sky ransomware, yeah, this only renders when the ransomware fully believes that it has successfully completed its mission. But as you can see, it's been auto-contained. It hasn't done anything. Now, the best part here is it has no way to know that it hasn't done anything. Now, remember, it's only these processes that you see that green wrapper around that are auto-contained, which means my machine is fully functioning. I can print my documents, read my emails, surf the web, do my instant messaging chats. Everything is fully functioning, which means productivity is not interrupted, yet I'm fully safe. Now, I described a minute ago, only 3 things can happen on the endpoint. If it's known good, it runs. If it's known bad, you'll never see it. And if it's unknown, it's auto-contained like this here. So how do we get this unknown to a known state? Well, us mere mortals really don't have any real means to figure that out on our own. But actually, Xcitium includes a verdicting system built into the platform that'll do just that. It'll automatically analyze all of those things that are contained because they're unknowns. It will actually render a verdict, good or bad, drop it into the appropriate bucket, and in either of those cases, you still don't need to worry about it because if it's good, it'll run. If it's bad, it'll never run on any Xcitium environment on the planet again. So we got you covered. But at the end of the day, every executable in your environment will be known good or bad. Everything else will be auto-contained, and we'll figure it out. So this is the endpoint perspective. And of course, this is a very interactive version of the endpoint, and that's exactly the way I've configured this as the administrator from the administrative interface. I wanted these to show up. Now, some people will tell me, oh, I don't want my users seeing this showing up on the desktop. That's fine. Turn that off. And then I don't want these windows showing up either, because then my phone will ring and then it'll create more work for me. Well, what happens here on the endpoint is completely configured by the administrator. So yes, you can turn off the widget and you can turn off these so they don't pop up or panic your users. But regardless, when something is auto-contained, the administrator knows about it. And in fact, if I had turned all of this off and I went ahead and clicked on that instructions and nothing happened, well, then I might try to click again and again. I might actually try a dozen times. And after that, I might actually pick up the phone and call. But by that point, the administrator will have already known that I've clicked on it a dozen times. And they'll simply say, well, no, Matt, you can't have that file because it's not exactly what you thought it was in the first place. At which point I'd say, thank you and carry about my day. But my machine is safe. I can carry about my day and productivity is not interrupted. Okay, now, so this is the endpoint perspective. What I wanted to do is actually just give you a peek at the administrative side where all of that is controlled from. So I'll just pull up my browser here and toggle over there. Now, the very first tab that I have open here is actually the verdict page for that which was contained. Full transparency here at Xcitium. So you can see this is a public URL. And here's the verdict. It's malware, or Analytical summary is down here at the bottom, and there's more information across the tabs if you want it. And of course, in this case, we also include something called a kill chain report. And this actually just goes into much greater detail of everything that would have happened on the endpoint had you not been protected. And this is what it looks like. I won't go through all of these, but you can see there's your verdict, and the classification graph will tell you exactly what this is doing. So if you want the information as to why or how we came to this verdict, well, you can actually see this for yourself and come to the very same conclusion. But this here is our verdicting system in action. All right, let's go over to my first tab here. Now this is that console, the administrative console that I was referring to. So I am logged in already, and this is my landing page with all sorts of information, and I can drill down really quickly and get to all that information, which is actually dropped in over here. All of that data from across all of my endpoints is dropping in to my dashboards here, so I have easy access to all of it. We do have a lot in our platform here, but if I just leave the security tab momentarily and scoot past the managed security, you'll see we also have an integrated ITSM. And if I go ahead and click on device management, well, this will literally tell you where all of the data in my environment is coming from. So you'll see instantly if a device is offline or online. You'll see the actual machine names and the components that are installed. The patch status per device is listed here. Who's logged in last activity? This is my world. Now, if you have different departments, locations, buildings, facilities, what have you, then you can absolutely group your hardware as you see fit. And if I actually go ahead and select a device, you'll actually notice this whole row at the top just illuminated. And this is all of the integrated remote management we also have built into our platform. The first one is remote control. And you may actually already be familiar with this, simply because I have been using this all along to show you the platform here today. If you look at the header bar of my window up in the upper left-hand corner, you'll actually see this machine name and remote control. So yes, I am remoted into the very machine that I'm showing you here. And this is our own remote management capability. This is not RDP. So if you're looking for that alternate way to securely reach out to a device and connect to it and manage it, help the users, etc., you can absolutely do that right from here, regardless of where the device is. And of course, we have a whole host of other capabilities that are built in here. Now, if you actually click on the machine itself, it actually will give you much more information about the device, like the hardware footprint, the operating system, and the version. Right? This is just the summary tab. All of these tabs, or these items in the horizontal row, do provide additional bits of the information on the device if you wish to have it. It's right here at your fingertips. Networks tab, sure, I have one NIC, and that is my running configuration. The software inventory will actually tell me everything installed in this device, what it is, the version, when it was installed, and if you do find something that's actually not supposed to be there, for example, well, you can uninstall it right from here if you wished. And then if I just look briefly at the patch management here. So yes, this will break this out between operating system and third party. So I do have this visibility and control these actions on the endpoint. I can see all of the OS patches and the status of each. And for third party apps, same type of thing. I know all of the applications I'm running, and it looks like I've got quite a few that are due for updates here. And if I'm okay with some of these, then I can update that device from here. So the integrated remote management is absolutely helpful because from a single console, I can now manage my organization. Now, when I actually dropped into this dashboard, I started here on my landing page, which is the endpoint dashboard. Now, some organizations are looking at this data like, I don't have the time, there's too much stuff here, I don't have the wherewithal resources to tackle this. Well, this is where we can help you as well, because we do have a managed offering, an MDR, XDR that ties right into this. And if you wanted that, actually, there's not a lot that you have to technically do, but what we would do on our side is flip a switch and activate this dashboard in your console. And then many things start to happen simultaneously, including us watching your console here, 7/24/365. We're not just waiting for an alert to pop, though. We are literally and proactively threat hunting through all the event data that has arrived here. We're actually looking for suspicious activity that hasn't triggered any alerts. And we will flush all that out. And of course, for all the alerts that have triggered, we will go through all of this. Remember, this is your dashboard as well, and you're welcome to go through it. But with the MDR, XDR activated, we're doing this on your behalf. And out of all of those alerts, there will be some incidents that are generated. And that's because these require a much deeper investigation, again, on our part, which we will do in turn. And out of all of these, naturally, some number of tickets will be generated. And this is where you would be notified. Why? Well, simply because we don't have access to your full network, you do. And if I just look at these tickets here, all right, it's a quiet week here. Let me just open this up to a larger window. Here we go. All right, I think this is actually an easy read. Ticket ID, subject, severity. There's all sorts of things going on here, but let me open up a ticket, show you what that looks like. On the right-hand side, you can see the ticket history. Everything from ticket creation to closure will be right here in one spot. Any attachments that go back and forth will be right here as well. In the ticket itself, we're just going to dump all of the gory details of everything we found, but we will always include recommendations on how to resolve this. Now, clearly, this is a simple example, but they're not always going to be simple or easy. And in those cases where you're not 100% certain on how to resolve it, well, we are, and we will help you. Why? Because our managed offering includes unlimited support resolution assistance. It's not a separate bucket of billable hours that you got to carefully use and go buy more when you run out. We don't play that game. We're all in. Okay. So I've kind of skimmed the surface on the administrative interface here. I started with the endpoint protection because this fills that gap that is absolutely missing across the industry. The auto containment that we've brought to the market is a patented component that we've decided not to share with anyone. So it is quite a differentiator in taking care of and directly addressing those 0 days. Remember, if that ransomware is out there, if it's known bad, you'll never see it. But if it's a new instance, someone changed something so it's undetectable, it's simply auto-contained, much like this here. So you're safe regardless. So that's the high-level overview of our platform. I'll pause there and turn it right back to John.
I'd certainly like to hear from anybody that's listened so far and see if they have questions on anything that we've covered. Go ahead, Bill.
I'll make one comment. I heard something really interesting a while back. You
Okay.
know, they said when you look at the balance sheet of your business, you have furniture on there, right? And so if you came into your office and your furniture was gone, you could still function, right? But imagine if your data was trapped, you were locked out from it, right? How long could you survive? Some businesses, I saw one company went out of business, a ransomware attack after 48 hours.
Yeah. And that's, I'll actually build off of that statement. How many companies are out there that understand what it costs to be out of business per day or per hour or per week or whatever the case is? Because, I mean, we certainly talk about some of these solutions, and disaster recovery and cybersecurity solutions can be expensive, but what does it cost you to be out of business for, like you said, Bill, 48 hours, for example? Most companies haven't gone through that exercise, and I think it would be eye-opening to folks if they did. So I do want to definitely thank Matt for being here. Your demo was great. Really good information from Xcitium. If there's anything that any of us can help you with, reach out to your Renodis reps. Thank you all. Have a great day.